Zok the Gemara, and she could get rid of this. Over to go. I can't find my. Where's my thing? Here it is. Okay, Zok the Gemara. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Lihun. Only Rav Nachman could say Amar Lihun. For us, it's Rav Hun, right? Kulon Sheviu Raya. All of these people, as Rosh Bam speaks out, an Umin, an Oris, and all of the people who we listed off as those who cannot make a chazaka, who their 3 years don't mean anything because they belong there. If they have a raya, such as a star, as Rashi says, either star mechira or edom mechira, rayas and raya, their raya will be a good raya. So of course the Rosh Bam speaks out, milsa de pshiti, that's not a chiddush. Of course a star works. Umishum sefer nokati. Umamidin soda b'yada. You will allow them to keep the field if they had a star or edom. However, this is the chiddush part. Gazlan shevi raya. If a gazlan bought a raya, ein rayasei raya vein mamidim soda b'yada. Zok the heilige Rashbam edom mechira edoida avol matan mois leros. That's the important thing. If he has edom that say we witness that the Gazlan bought this field, or if we have Edom that say that they heard the Ma'arer admit to them that in fact they did sell the field to the Gazlan, all those cases would not be a raya, and therefore ve'ein mamidim sada b'yadin. If you notice, the Rashbam specifically speaks out, they didn't see any payment, because this that the Edom don't help the Gazlan is only if they didn't see a payment. If they saw a payment, that would change the whole story. And this is going to introduce the sugya of tzluya v'zavin zvina zvine. If there's a forced sale, but I pay, even though it's against the will of the seller, Rav Huna holds that's a good sale. It's a good sale. Therefore, if Edom just saw that he admitted that he bought it, that he sold it, that could be also forced. That also might be forced. Maybe he only admitted to it, or he only did the sale because he was afraid the Gazlan was going to beat him up. We already learned at the end of yesterday, the definition of a Gazlan is someone who either we know specifically lied about this field, or someone who's going to beat the guy up and mess him up and destroy his life if he doesn't make the sale. So just the fact that the witness saw the sale or saw him being registered doesn't mean anything. But if the witness saw that money was exchanged, then even if it was against his will, it's still considered to be a good sale. And this is the springboard into that sugi. What is the chiddush of the fact that a forced sale is not a good sale? Tanina, we learned it in the Brisa. Lokach mi sikrikoin, an innocent civilian goes and buys a property from a sikrikoin. A sikrikoin is someone who beats people up and forces people to sell. Rashi calls it a Gazlan Nochri. The Rashbam calls it a Gazlan Nochri. Harig nefoshosh aliske moment. So basically, if you don't do what this guy says, he's going to kill you. And then someone went and bought the property from the Sikrikoin, but then the chazer v'lokach mi balabayis. I know the Sikrikoin forced Reuven to sell this property, so I went back to the balabayis and I paid him as well. So the halacha is mekre bottle. It still would be bottle. So we have a brisa that already says a forced sale doesn't work. So of course, and the reason why it's mekre bottle, the Rashbam says, is because even this guy is afraid to refuse because he's afraid he'll get back to the Sikrikoin and the Sikrikoin will come kill him. So huadin, it's not unlikely that Edom would have seen a mechira, or Edom would have seen that the original owner who got ripped off will be moided that it was sold because he doesn't want the Sikrikoin to kill him. So oy bezoi, what is the chiddush of Huna? It's really a brisa that says just that. And for the Gemara lafukim with the Rav, the chiddush of Huna is to tell us that we don't pass like that. What does Rav say? This Reuven goes over to the victim of the Sikrikoin. Let's say the victim of the Sikrikoin was Shimon. He goes to Shimon, says, "I would like to buy your property. May I buy your property?" And Shimon says, Lech chazekut. There, the Brisa says, Ein mamitin sada b'yadai, that's not a good sale. Aval b'shtar. But if a star was written, kana. Why? Because even though I'm forced by a sekrikon, I'll say Lech chazekutni. But to actually write a star that I sold it, that I wouldn't do. That is the sheet of Rav. And Rav Huna is arguing, Kamash Malan, that even that is something that we would say was coerced. Even the writing of a star, we would say is coerced, and therefore it's not a good Bechira. Shmuel, and who do we pass like Shmuel, who argues in Rav? The Yomer Af Bishtar Nami Loikana, if there's a chrais written in the star, that if anybody takes it away from you, claiming that it never belonged to me, I will repay you. There, it's a legitimate sale because that the moicher, the victim of the sakrikan, didn't have to write. Maybe he was forced to write a star, but he's not forced to write a chrais nechosim. If we put a chrais nechosim into this sale, then it is a legit sale. Now, in all these cases, there cannot be an exchange of money because if there's an exchange of money, then it's tluya b'zav and zvinas vini. But let's see how that fits in. So let's see these two Rashbams. They're long, but they're easy, so we'll quickly go through them. Tanina b'Maseches Gitman Nizak and Lagach Mishakrikon. Migazl Nochri, Harg Nefashois, Alis Gemaman, he'll kill you for money. So the guy is coming to kill the Yid. The Yid says, you know what? Don't kill me, Sa Kar Kazu, take this property, Banicheni, and let me be. Umatana Zu, I have a matana. That's of course not a sincere matana. Even the mandamer who holds that if it's a forced sale, but I'm receiving payment, that would be a legitimate sale. If you force me to give you something, there surely I'm not going to be nicha. The time of Mefarish begitten, and in Gittin, the Gemara tells us why it is that it's not a sincere sale. Because Gimel Gzeres Gozru, Rechaman Litzlan the Eden went through some very hard times. The first Gzera, Kamaisa called the loikot elikti. Anyone who sees a Jew and doesn't kill the Jew, we're going to kill him. That's like what Hamas would do. Mitziasa, then as they got pressure from the international, not from the UN, not from the Security Council, but from Western civilization, called the cult Lazi Arbuza. If you kill a Jew, you're going to be severely punished. You're going to have to pay a fine of $1, right? And this Raisa finally normaled up. They said, called the cult liktelinu. Whoever kills a Jew, we're going to kill him, maybe. So, Kamaisa Mitziyasa, Kibon the Kotli Nachem Yisrael, Agavunte Gamarumak. In the first two situations where the Jews literally were going to get killed, and they knew they were going to get killed because the law promoted killing them, there they would be Taka Gomer and Makni. They're happy to give their field away with the ganze hearts in order to save their lives. But Basraisa, once already there's a punishment for someone who kills a Jew. Now they're not so happy to give their property up because they feel that maybe they don't need to. Amri ha'idna lishko. Today we'll give him the property, and tomorrow we'll mon him in Bezdin or we'll mon him in court because he seized our property. And since they're not allowed to kill us, I might be able to do this. The Succumb is not kind of. The loy nasan mois. He didn't pay. Ela gazla bechinam. Valakeich nami mimenu or valakeich mimenu nami lekana. And of course, anyone if the Succumb wasn't kind of, then someone who buys it from the Succumb and then wants to make a deal with me, he's not kind of either. The karka ein exelas. The akati bershusa demari kaima isa. Even if the person who bought it from the Succumb goes to make a deal with the Balabayas, because of the shtar, and the Balabayas writes him a shtar that I'm selling you this property, but below mois. It couldn't have been an exchange of money. Then you would be kind like Rafuna said, and that is Tliya V'Zav and Zvinas Vini. Even the Succumb himself would have been kinder had he paid the nigzah. And that's going to come out very clear as we learn through the Gemara today. The Islay Tliya V'Zavin is a good sale. Lekeach is not kinder. The Machmas, even the Lekeach who bought it from the Succumb and now wants to come make a deal with me, even he's not kinder. The Machmas Pachad, the Succumb, he is only being magnet. The original owner is only being magnet is because if he's not magnet to the Lekech will maybe go back after the Succumb. The Succumb will come back after me. The Chivin the Ein Raya Salakech Migazlin Raya. The Balta Raya from the Lekech Migazlin is not a good Raya. Afilu Kihader V'Zavim Balabayas, because the Balabayas is coerced. Kol Shagain v'Kol Shagain, never such a nusa. Kol Shagain v'Kol Shagain, a double Kol Shagain. The Ein Raya Sagazlin not Raya. Surely the Succumb himself, the star written to him would be useless. The Machmas Pachad Kosav Le'Astar. The victim only wrote the star Machmas Pachad. And he never received cash. The name of Zvina Zvini. Gewaltig. Sagt the Gemara weiter. So the chiddush is that with Paskin like Shmuel, not Rab, even a star will say would have been a star that was written under duress, and that wouldn't be a good raya unless there was a chayis nachasim. Is there a shvam and a chayis nachasim? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Sagt the Gemara weiter. If you have Bibi Misayimba, and look how our Bibi finishes off. Mishmeder Rav Nachman, which means he's arguing on them. How is he arguing? Because he says, Karka Einlai will take the Karka away from the Sukrikoi, from the Keach, if the seller was coerced. Avo Mois Yeshloi. But will let the Ganev, will force the victim to pay the Ganev cash. Why would he pay the Ganev cash? Obviously, he holds that even if the Ganev paid for it, it's also not a good sale. So you have a raiv here that Rav Bibi holds, or he's quoting from Rav Nachman. Rav Bibi is quoting from Rav Nachman that no, even Tfuli V'Zovin is not a good sale. So in a case where he paid, you might think that first you take the kaka away from the goy, from the Sakri goy, because the goy stole it. But you might think we will counter the goy, and we will say that the seller, the victim, doesn't have to return the money. Kamash Malon, that of Azoivat, you make him return the money. When do we say this? Shamur Edim Befanenu Monoloy. Edim say we saw him counting out the cash. We actually saw the receipt of the payment. All we saw was that the victim was moida to the Goslin, that he sold it to them. Loy, that would not be a riot that there was an act, there was a proper sale here. Could Rav Kana, like the Rav Kana we had on the Aleph, the Amar Ilav, the Oidelay, have a mamtele l'didei u'lechamer l'shach. This Sukrika, this Goslin, this bully, would destroy him if he wasn't moida. So that's who he was moida. But if you see an actual payment of cash, that's tluy v'zavan zvina zvine, and therefore it would be a good payment. But of course, Rabbi Bibi said in the name of Rav Nachman that forget it. That's the thing. If there was payment involved and there was a forced payment, it would be a good sale. That's what Rav Kahana would hold. But according to Rav Nachman, even if it was paid for, we reverse the sale. Okay, gewaltig. Amar Rav Huna, Toluyu v'zavin zvina zvini. If there was a forced sale, but in fact there was a payment for the sale, that is a good sale, which of course contradicts what Rabbi Bibi said in the name of Rav Nachman. My timer, call the Mazban Inish. Think about it. Every sale is coerced. Would you sell a property if you didn't need the money? Of course not, right? I love saying over this story. I was once saying of Rav Weisbert Shir that he used to say, he still says it in Maguna South, before Mincha in the afternoon. And in that shir, he had Mr. Bleeman and Mr. Reichman, and Danny Schmidt in that shir, and Mr. Levovich is in that shir, and Hilda Dubinsky is in that shir. So it was Geschmack, it was in Yiddish. So we were learning about Chayrim of Kaihanim and Karka that goes back by Yovel, selling Karka. So I was giving a motion. Let's say Mr. Bleeman sells a property to Mr. Levovich. And everyone's screaming there, 999. I said, like, what did I say wrong? Mr. Bleeman is not finished. He doesn't sell property. So anybody who sells property is somewhat coerced because he's desperate for the money. He loved the honest. If he wasn't pressed for money, lev him out. The Rashbam says even metalton. People don't sell things off unless they need the money. Nevertheless, zvini. I don't really want to sell. I'm coerced for the money. The teretz is if I'm accepting money, even though I'm somewhat pressed to do it, I'm still nicha to do the sale. So huadin if I'm more pressured from a guy with a gun to my head. Maybe there's a difference. If I myself determine, due to my situation, my pressure, my financial pressures that I want to sell, there I'm in ganzen to sell. But when someone holds a gun to my head where it wasn't self-motivated, maybe that wouldn't be a good sale. If I'm going to make a claim that Tluyev is up and Zvina Zvini, maybe I would know it from the following price. Yaakov, it says by a carbon, the pasuk says by a carbon. Let's have a look at the pasuk. Im oila karbonai min habokar zocher tamim yakrivenu al pesach oil moed Yaakov, and then right after that it says lirtzoinai. So Yaakov is melamed shekayfen oisai. If he makes a neder to bring an oila, they will force him to bring it. Yachal bal charcha, you might think you can force someone to bring a carbon bal charcha. Tamadem l'tzoinai, he has to be willingly bring it. So how does that work? So it's the same way by a carbon, it's considered l'rotzon. Even though it's being forced, so too, a sale with a gun to your head is considered willingly, even though you're maybe by the carbon it's different because there's a benefit to me. I'll be able to discharge the chiyuv to bring my carbon. I'm teaching it this way because we're not talking about a chatas that's brought for a avera. We're just talking about an oila, which is what Tosfos speaks out. Which is what Tosfos speaks out. The Dilma Shiny also the nichalei the tavali kapor, when he's being forced lamaisi, he's also discharging his chiyuv. So maybe that's why it's considered l'tzayinoi. So we're aborting that raya, and now we're going to try to find another raya that when I'm coerced to do something, it's enough of a will that is considered l'tzayinoi. The same thing applies b'gitei noshim. If this person needs to divorce his wife for whatever reason, Rashi, the Rashbam says, for instance, if he's a mukashchin or bal polipos, I'm not sure what polipos is, but it's a condition that makes him less than desirable to his wife. Do you know what a bal polipos is? It's some type of mum. I don't know. Maybe it means morning breath. I'm not sure what it means. Anyway, but it's something that you would force him to give a get. In fact, Gemara with Dilma Shiny also maybe over there as well. There's another factor that makes him be rotzi to do this. The mitzvah l'shmoya divrei chacham. Maybe it's because there's a mitzvah to listen to the divrei chacham. El svara, it's a svara. Agamunte gomer machtim. We don't have a raya from any precedent from the Torah, from any Mishnah, from any brayso. It was Rav Huna's own svara that since he's in a tight spot, it would be considered enough of a rotzen. It's considered enough of a rotzen that it's a good mechira. As a response for his voice, El Rav Huna misvar didei ka'amar. He said his own svara. The mitoich yisurim gomar beliba yumak. Hoil vikatarte. There's yisurim and there's matan noise. He's not really losing. He's giving up a field, but at least he's receiving full payment. Moisev Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda had a kasha on this halacha of Tluyev. Get hamausa. A get hamausa, it means shakoifin oisai lebal lahaiti. They forced the Baal to write the get. In Yisrael, who, if it was a Jewish bully who beat this guy up until he gave the get, kosher shekafu Yisrael, a yid forced. Of course, after the Yisrael made a convincing argument by twisting his arm out of his socket, he said, "Yeah, I'll do it. So that's a good get. But ba'achim puzzle, if they hired a goy to beat this guy up, it will not be a good get. Let's have a look at the Rashbam. Ba'achim puzzle. Even if by the guy's voice did right, because the maksha is thinking over here, the be Yisrael kosher. Why by Yisrael is a kosher and by a guy not? Because by a guy, there's no chacham telling him to do it. They hired some bully to beat the guy up. But if Yisrael is doing it, the mitzvah l'shmoy divrei chachamim. So we're assuming who's being called for him, the rabbi who is demanding the get. So there's an additional sweetening to the pot factor of Ratzon is that he's also getting the benefit of listening to Divrei Chachamim. But Uva'akim Pasol, even the Leka mitzvah, since there's no mitzvah to listen to a guy, Agavun say like Gamar Magarish. So the Bach takes it to Mak. Agavun say like Gamar Magarish. I bezai the kachel or avuna tzver and avuna the kivin the lecha mitzvah loimakni agabunse. If someone's forcing him to sell with a gun to his head, where there's no other factor that would attract him to do it, in fact, it wouldn't be a good rot. So I bezai it's tzver and avuna. Now zok to Brisa Viter uba akum, which Rashbam says. Let's say him only wrote to the koyf. Let's say we don't have a Jew who's brave enough to beat a guy up. So we need to hire a guy to do it. We get kosher, but we want to get to be kosher. Then melamdim onu la'akum, we tell the akum what to say. So yom ruloi asay mash Yisrael emula. This big shvarta will come up to him and say, beat him up. Do what Rabbi always said, or else I'm going to punch your eyes out. Right? That's how you do it. So then Viter, there's a factor of divrei chachamim over here. Uba akum. You better listen to the rabbi, if not, I'll pummel your brain in. So there as well, as the Rashbam speaks out, when a person is being megarish his wife, he's not losing anything. This is no different than a regular sale because he's not losing anything. The kivan sheishtoi say nasoi, he might not want to give a get, but the fact is, if they're demanding a get out of him, clearly his wife hates him. She doesn't want to be with him. Therefore, even if there was no get, that doesn't mean she's going to be living with him. She's still going to run away and not be living with him. So he lost her anyway. The get the get is only to be matter. He's never going to get her again anyway. She hates him. That she's an aguna is not an aguna because she has to live with him. She doesn't have to live with him. She's an aguna because she can't marry anybody else. So therefore, after the plum, this a get should be no different. A get should be no different than any mechira. Because just like by a mechira where you pay me, I'm not losing anything. A get by definition, I'm not losing anything because I lost her anyway. The get doesn't make me lose her. Dr. Gemara, Tosha speaks out this even more. Until now, I have to support her. I'm mechuyev in share ksus v'oina. So it's not going to happen. But sharing ksus, I'm still mechuyev. But by giving her get, I benefit that I'm no longer mechuyev in that. The truth is, if a goy forced somebody to give a get, it would be a legitimate get. For this reason exactly, because he's not losing anything. But it's only midrabanan that they disqualify the get. Why did the Rabbanan come in and invalidate the get? The Rashbam speaks out, any woman who wants to get from her husband will seduce a guy, a big strong guy with big muscles, and after she seduces the guy, she'll tell the guy, you know what, you want me? Get a get from my husband, and then she'll dump him too probably. So look at the Rashbam says, she will seduce him to beat up her husband. So therefore, we have to disqualify all of these types of get. The Gemara is going to discuss soon. How do you disqualify a get? If it's a real get, how could you disqualify it? What? Yeah, then it's good. So midaraisa, they're all good. Forced get is not a problem. But they want to discourage. They want to discourage her, so they won't. If a woman brings a get that was forced by a goy, and there was no bezdin involved in instructing the goy to beat him up, in those cases, the bezdin won't marry her. So she'll want to remarry. If someone will say, "I can't marry you off. I consider you an ishishista." Talking more about it, but of course, since only Rabbanan, if she was makabel kedushin from somebody, she would need a get from him as well. Because the Rabbanan are only not letting her get married with him. But technically, she's not an Ishushish, technically, another Kedushin would be Chal. Mojev Rav Hamnuna, Lokach mi sikrikoin, v'chazav lokach mi balabayis, mechebot. Pekmor, why is a bottle? V'amai. Hasam nami, agav unse, gomeru makne. There as well, they're holding a gun to his head. So he's being makne. Dr. Murray, we already made this distinction. Ha'itmer Allah, Amar Rav, lo shonu elo de Amar le lechazek ukni, aval b'shtar kona. Shmuel the Omar af b'shtar nami loikana. What about Shmuel? Even with the star is not going to ma'ikal meimar. Dr. Gemara moide Shmuel heicha the yoyev zuzi. Once again, if there's money paid, that's a different story. then it will be a good sale. But if there's no money paid, then it wouldn't be a good sale. Break the Gemara. Will Rav Bibi the Messiah but Mishmei Rav Nachman Karka Ein Loi Moish Yesh Loi, meaning Rav Bibi who holds the name of Rav Nachman, that even if I paid, it's still considered a for sale. My Kala Meimar. Zok the Gemara. Rav Bibi member who? Rav Bibi is an Amoira. He says something that doesn't agree with Rav Huna. Remember Rav Huna L'Shvila. Takamach Loikis. Rav Huna holds Tli of his oven is a good sale, and Rav Bibi holds Tli of his oven is not a good sale. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at Moed Shmuel Dech the Yovel Zuzay Zal Keach Minaser Krikon Kishachazav Elokach LeBalabayis. When he went to buy from the Balabayis, Yoyev LeZuzay LeBalabayis. If he gave money to the Balabayis, the Agav the Makabel Zuzay Gomer Umakin. Since the Balabayis was Makabel the payment from this buyer, it will be a good sale. The Hainu Tali of his oven. That's exactly the case where Rav Huna says is a good sale. Avo beloy mois, without money, loy gomer umak. The Rav Huna nami tluy of his oven comer. Rav Huna just says tluy of his oven, meaning if I paid you, that's where a forced sale is valid. Avo tluyu v'yoyiv, but if I force you to give it to me without payment, loy have a matana. He agrees that it wouldn't be a good matana. Right, Gemara. The Rav Bibi the Messiah il b'milsader Rav Nachman. Rav Bibi told us earlier from Rav Nachman. Domar Gazlan Shevi Raya Ein Yosy Raya. We said earlier in the name of Rav Nachman that even a Gazlan who brings a star, the star is not a Raya, and therefore and you don't let him keep the field. The Oitz of Rav Bibi, and Rav Bibi added to Rav Nachman and said, Avomois Yesh Gazlan, but we will force the victim to give the money back to the Gazlan, Shenosan the Nixal that he gave. Alma Svirla the Rav Bibi, that's proof positive. But the fact that Rav Bibi is talking about returning the money, that means he's saying that it's not a good mechira, even though the Gazlan originally paid for it. So you see, Loikana, that Liyav is Zavin Loyavizvid. So he holds, not like Rav Huna, he holds that, in fact, it wouldn't be a sale if it was forced, even if there was payment. The Nasa the Sakrikan, the Lakeach Mimenu, the Balabais Mois, the Measada, Loikana. Because Rav Huna, that's going to be Shver Rav Huna. And remember who show you Mishne, Brisa. You have Amal Rav Bibi Mishmedi Nafshay, and if Rav Bibi would have said it in his own name, the Gemara could you ask Nakasha from Rav Bibi on Rav Huna? You can't ask Rav Bibi on Rav Huna. So who did Rav Bibi said it over in the name of others, but he said it over in the name of other Amayroim, where Avada Rav Huna could have. Amarava Holcha. So what is Allah Lamaisa? Luyav Zavan Zvina Zvini, meaning we pass like Rav Huna and not like Rav Bibi. When do we say that? Ella Bisada Stam. That's if we hold a gun to your head and we tell you, you better sell me a field, if not, I'm going to blow your head off. There, who decided which field to give over under duress? The seller. So there's a shtickle nichusa, because I was the one who picked the field, so I gave you the field that I least want to keep. So there's more nichusa. But if they came and held a gun to your head and said, you must sell this field, loy, even Rabbi Huna would agree to leave his oven is not Zvinas Vini, because that's not a good nichusa. And even when they gave him the money, it's not a good mechira if I didn't even look at the money. But if I actually counted the money out, you see already I'm counting the money, you see there's some minimal level of acceptance. Well, but if the fellow counted the money out, loy, then it would be a good mechira. So let's have a look in the Rishbam. The Rishbam explains this very well. He picked the field that he wanted to give up. Since he picked it, he probably picked the worst field to give up. It was a field that bothered him the least to give up. But beside the zoo, so is loyman. When do we say that it's not a good sale? When they forced him on a specific field? That's if he never counted the money. Gila died to the bakar makabel because he wasn't even interested in the money. But filo beside the zoo, even in the case of the zoo, the loy artzuze, and he didn't count the money. Loy amoran, the loy havasvini. Normally by the zoo, we say it's not a good sale because they forced him to give up this field. But that's only if he didn't count the money. I'm sorry. That's the next step. So this is the next step in the Gemara that we didn't realize, that we didn't learn yet. So again, even if it's sadazu, where you say I didn't really want to give up this field, if I counted the money, that also displays some willingness to give it up. So it would be a good sale. That we say that it's a forced sale and it's bottle, that's only if there's nothing else he could have done to somehow delay out of making this sale. But if he could have had something to do to avoid the sale and he didn't, in other words, he didn't take maximum effort to stop this from happening, Loi will say that in fact it is a good sale. So now let's see the Rashbam inside. Even if it's a specific field that they demand, which is one point against the sale, and he didn't count the money. So you have two factors that would indicate that the moicher was not willing. We still say it's a good sale. It's only a good mechira if you have three things against it. A is they picked a specific field. B is I never even looked at the money because I wasn't interested in it because I didn't want to sell. And C is I did every possible thing that I could have done to avoid this map. Like, what else could I have done to avoid it? So if you're going, give me a date till tomorrow. I have to get my papers together. I have to tell me Ishti, wait till my wife comes because I can't do this without my wife. Anything that he could have possibly done to delay the sale. If he didn't do that, then even though they said Sadazu, even though he didn't count them up. So that is what the Gemara just said now in the name of Rava, right? However, we argue with Rava. Zog to Gemara, the fact of the matter is, none of these things would say it's not a sale. Even Sadazu, even by Sadazu, where they're forcing me to give up a specific sale, even that would be a good sale. So we're arguing Rava limited very much the Tli B'Zav and Zvini Zini to a very narrow set of circumstances. Now we're saying no. In all cases, even if the Vidaka wanted this Sada, even if I didn't count the money, it's still going to be a good sale. Why would I say that? The Isha Kisadazu Damya. When you're forcing somebody to give a get, it's like Sadazu. You know why? Because it's Dafka this wife, right? There's only one wife that we're talking about. As the Rashbam says, so now we're not talking about a get over here. Now we're talking about a man who forces a woman to accept kedushin. When you're forcing your wife to accept kedushin, you're not giving her a choice of which woman to give up to the marriage. It's about herself, right? So if I take a ring, a gold ring, and I go over to a woman and I say, I'm forcing you to marry me, here's the ring, it will be a good kedushin. So that would be no different than Sadazu. The same way if I force a woman to be married, it's a good kedushin. Once I force her to accept the kedushin ring, the kes of kedushin, so too, if you force somebody to sell a field, it will be a good sale. Okay, gewaltig. So ve'ilchza b'chula b'zvini afilu b'sadazu v'lo yartezuzei v'lo yavelush tamutei navayin is gomer v'goyin to amar reitzani. As long as he said reitzani at the end, even though everything else points to the fact that he was not misratza, if he said reitzani, it'll be a good sale. Just like a woman who was forced to accept the kedushin, so isha kishemachricha adam lakabel kedushin was kadosh kesad the sudamya she'ene chavetz ki bo, he only wants her. The Amar Mar, the Bach changed the nusach not from Amar Meimar but Amar Mar. We know the halach is Luyi v'Kadosh Kibla Kedushin Kedusha Kedushin will be a good Kedushin. The Damil is Vini Shemecher Zatzmal Zeh. It's like a sale. She's selling himself to her. Zog to Gemara weiter. Mar Baravashi Amar Be'isha Vadai Kedushin Loha. If it was a woman that was forced to marry a man, it would not be a good kedusha. Again, because of a knas. Who also shaloi kahagin, he acted very improperly by forcing a woman to accept kedushin. Also imoy shaloi kahagin. So they also treated her shaloi kahagin. They also treated him shaloi kahagin. Vafkinu rabbanon likidusha emine, and the rabbanon took away his kedusha. Let's see the Rashbam. Mar baravashi omar. The mecher mardin davasinu. By Mecher, I will agree that it's a good sale, but you can't bring a right from Isha. Avagabe Isha, right there, the Gemara said by Mecher it's a good sale because of Isha, but by Isha there won't be a good sale. Avagabe Isha Tikkun Rabbanon to have a kedushin. So by Emes is a kedushin, and that's why you can bring a right to Mecher. But there's a special takana by Isha that we invalidate the kedushin. The who Oisha Shaloi Kaigan Shechricha. He did something very inappropriate. He forced it. We'll treat him Shaloi as well. The Avagav Dimin Atayr Lahav Kedushin Rabbanon Akrinu took away the kedushin. They've giru oison va'asu mois matana. They made the mois matana. So let's go weiter. Amalei Ravinu Ravashi Teinich the kodesh bekas. We understand using hefker bes and hefker, they can say that this kesef kedushin never belonged to him. It was hefker, and that's why there's no kedushin. But kaddish bepia Michael Meimer. How could they invalidate a kedusha bia? They can undo money. They can say it wasn't your money. But how could you undo a bia? Bia is a physical ma'isa. Amarlei. Since you say Kedash Moshe Yisrael and Moshe Yisrael doesn't agree to this kedushin, it's not a good kedushin. I made a beer, yeah, it's going to be a beer. We'll see if we have a couple of minutes to learn the Rashbam on this. There's an interesting discussion about this. Tavi Tolo La Papi Akinra. Tavi was a bully. He wanted to buy something from Papi, so he hung him up Akinra. He hung him up on the tree. That's why it's called Tluyi V'Zoven. They hang you until you agree to a sale. He hung him up on the tree. There are those who learn the Rashbam says that he hung him over the purchase of a tree. So the question was the kinua what he hung him on, or was the kinua what he wanted to buy? V'zoven, and he bought this. He bought it. Now, who signed the shtar mechira? Chosim Rabba Bar Chana Amayda Bashkal. Now, what happened was Papi knew that Tavi was going to do this to him, so he asked Rabba Bar Chana and another 8 to sign it the day before he went to them, and it was Moshe Moedah. Tavi's going to force me tomorrow to do the sale. I would like you to record that I declare it here in front of you that what I'm doing tomorrow is coerced. So even if you all leave his oven, Zvini, that's if I wasn't Moshe Moedah. If I was Moshe Moedah the day before, it'll invalidate. The problem is, you know who was the Edom on the star when we bought it? Vashkalta. So Rabbi Bechana Sai signed on the shtar Moedah, and then he signed on the shtar of the sale, which would almost say it's a legitimate sale. So Amar Rav Huna, Man de Chasam Amedah Shaper Chasam, the Chasim on the Medah, so it's a good Chasim, and therefore it should not be a good sale. Uman de Chasam Ashkal to Shaper Chasam, so it should be a good sale. So for Gemara, you can't have it both ways. Manavsha, Ibayda, Lo Ashkalta. If the Medah is legit, then the sale is not legit. V'Ashkalta, and if the sale is legit, Lo Medah, the Medah is not legit. It can't be both. Zok the Gemara, this is what Rav Huna meant. Hachik Amar, Ilav Medah, if it wasn't for the fact that Rabbi Bar Chana had signed on the Medah the day before, Man the Chosim Ashkalta Shaper Chosim, it would have been a good sale. Why? Because a forced sale is a valid sale. Rav Huna Tamei, Damar Rav Huna Tliya V'Zavin Zvini Zvini. So Rav Huna holds if you force a sale, it'll be a good sale if there's payment involved. But if you were Moshe Medah before the sale, even Rav Huna would agree that it will invalidate the sale. Okay, we could stop here because I think this is the end of Monday's daf. So tomorrow is Memtes, which is Tuesday's daf. We'll learn it tomorrow, and then we will be ahead of the game. We still have a couple of minutes, so let's quickly look at this interesting thing of the Rabban took the kedushin away from him. So let's have a look. We're in middle of this Rashbam of Mar Bar Vashi. So I'm going to go to where we left off, which is like 7-8 lines above from the skinny lines. The Avagav Dimin Atayr Lahava Kedushin, even though in the Torah there should be a good Kedushin, if someone forced a woman to accept Kedushin from him. Rabbanon Akrinu, the Rabbanon were Arkad Kedushin, Vifkir Oison, they were Mafkid Mois, Vasu Mois Matana. They made it into a gift, not Lator's Kedushin, so his Kedushin evaporates. V'makam Akram Afarish, in another place, they explain, the Chol de Mekadesh Adaita de Rabbanon Mekadesh, Kedash Moshe v'Yisrael. So therefore, if you're being Mekadesh based on Moshe v'Yisrael approving this marriage, for Rabbanon Amr Loy Lava Kedushin, Nimta Shalakitchaza. You know why? Sharei b'das chachamim tolo. Your whole kedushin is based on the das chachamim. The haim einam chafetzim kedushin alone. So zok the martaydet chachaj b'kar. There yichol chacham lafki kedushin. The hefker best never gabe mama. And therefore shki'ilu kacha begezel uvechamos dami. They will have a kedushin. Aval kadosh b'bia they can't make bia oish bia. Just a ma'isa b'gufa. Heich yomu chachamim shaloi tehei bia. This is a bia. They can't make an ois bia. They can make the kesef kedushin matana, but they can't make bia ois bia. The istim in farish, teinach the kodesh bekaspa the kedusha kesef derabon. This is a big discussion. There are those who learn that kedusha kesef is only derabon. So therefore, they can invalidate the kedushin derabon because heimamu beimamu. The same rabbanon who said you can use kedusha kesef also say that this particular kini kesef won't be good. The kedushin de devrayim yechon laker. They can only be oiked because it's kedushin derabon, and that's how they want to learn the glory. Because anyway, the whole kedushin is only be derabon. The kodesh bebia to have a kedushin deraisa ma'ikol meima. Dr. Rashbam v'tosa b'yodem. It's false shot. Because we know kedusha kesef is deraisa. The migzeira shava yalfinan the kedusha kesef and mazef kedushin. The gam l'chol davar ishkus havayis ladodi. All of the different kedushins are ishkus ladodi, and they're 100% deraisa. For mina bekrisus alti gzer shava kalabeinech. Don't take gzer shava lightly. Gzer shava is deraisa, not a derabban. Sharei noiser echad migufei Torah. The whole halach of noiser is a major halach on Torah. There's a chiv chorus on it. Its whole source is gzer shava. Void my high the kamahadalei. What would the Torah be? What does that mean? If a kedushin bia is a kedushin deraisa, they can't just do it. So you have to rely on this svara. Even that died to the rabbanon mekadosh, lo have a kedushin. The ami rabbanon lo have a kedushin. Once the rabbanon invalidated kedushin, so by definition that bia was a bia snus. Mitochach nimtis me'atma be'ilas snus. Okay, we'll stop here, Bez Hashem. I think we're a full blood ahead. So now we are very well positioned to get the front seats on the airplane on the way to Yisrael. Mashiach comes, because we don't have to finish the daf first. We can run straight to the plane. And if Chas v'Shalom Mashiach doesn't come, then we'll just pick up Wednesday morning. Go ahead.